pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just alternates, so Cheryl will not be here, so we see someone for Cheryl. Chris will be late, about half an hour late. So he'll be here, but he's not here.
But we need two then, right now.
We
Right?
need two right now, and then Chris Coyle should be here shortly.
So I nominate Bob for Cheryl. And you want to do two at once?
Yeah, I think we can handle
Bob for Cheryl and then Joanne for Chris.
it. Okay. Second?
Second.
That was a politically sensitive motion.
Hey, look, I gotta wait.
All right, any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, abstained. All right, just wanted to get some of these budget minutes approved, so we'll just start with March 5th.
Now, these minutes both say March 12th on the top?
My fault. Did you bring hard copies for those? You didn't get that email?
No, well, I didn't know.
I said send you an email saying, can you print these?
Oh,
for
I
everybody?
printed the capital, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the minutes were before that.
The one that's dated March 5th, that's the one we were just talking about, has the motion on EDC, it says Frederickson abstained.
Yeah, I'm sure I didn't. I think that's just an error.
Okay.
So that one has March 12th on the front, but does have March 5th on the back. So this is probably the March 5th one.
I think I was copying the titles to be consistent, so that was my fault, I screwed that up. Just because it looked. All right. So change the date, that's the first correction.
Change my vote.
There's something wrong one. That's on 3-5.
On 3-5, correct. It's at the bottom of the first page of the minutes.
Yeah.
So did anyone?
So now it becomes unanimous.
Right. Okay. So I'll fix that. Two corrections. Those are the secretaries on vacation. Okay. Any other?
Anything else from my finance?
I haven't seen it, it just seems it's always you and I who adjourn the meeting, though.
There's only two guys that
You're
focus.
just in a hurry to get out of
I'm
here.
okay with that. I don't see any issues with the 12, the minutes of the 12. Motion to approve them as written. So moved.
With those two,
As
amended?
Changed.
At least the fifth as
That's
amended.
correct.
We didn't prove that one if you want to do it.
Oh,
separately.
okay.
So
So
we'll
fifth
just-
as amended then.
Okay. Do you want to take a vote on that, second on that?
Second.
All right. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Abstain. All right, so the 12th.
Don't see any issues there. Make a motion to approve the minutes March 12th as written.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? All right. Back to the budget. So let's go to some of the top. So I think we'll talk about insurance, I think is the first one, in numerical order. 95.
So I can,
That's on the selectmen's pages.
I'm gonna talk about a couple different lines of information that's come up, so this one's gonna be a little bit complicated. So, for the first line, I'm just gonna change that to call it health insurance, because you change that all the time. It should be putting the vendor name in there anyway. Because it's not gonna be that. So the revised estimate was 460, less approximately 31,000 in co-pays, which gives us 429 for that number. So uninsured loss, we talked about, that's a deductible line, right? That's what that means.
that's, the deductible for, let's say, two events, they're 5,000 each.
Okay.
And I'm sorry that you did, what did you do for the insurance?
429.
Okay.
All right. So Social Security, I'm just gonna ask the question, and we can revisit with salary increases. Is
Correct.
this number okay? Or does it need to go up a little bit? We haven't hit that number.
I think it's right. I think it's okay because there's less overtime, except we have now the snowstorms, but I don't think the impact is going to be over what we have.
Okay, even next year, because salary
Correct.
increases are gonna go up, so
Right.
factoring in all that, I don't know where, again, what we're projecting, but 120 you still think is good?
Yes.
Okay. The pension number is good,
That, you got the plans?
Yeah.
Okay.
so that number's good.
The 255, 963 number?
Yeah, that's a good number. The 102 is a good number. That's straight from the actuary. We need to add a new line for the deferred comp plan because new employees now go into that plan. There's at least one person who's current year in that plan. And so any new hires would go that direction. Don't really have an idea, have any history with this right now. And over time, hopefully the pension numbers are gonna go down, so hopefully it's gonna shift, but currently that hasn't happened. So, an estimate of 15,000, that's depending on salary, 3 employees, I don't know, if we necessarily have new employees and they would have to be full-time to get the benefit, but we need some number in this new line, so
So what do you propose putting in?
15,000.
15?
Just, and we'll know better next year where that's dropping. And then I just want to ask Barb, and I know it's still an unknown, but instead of employment, we'll do this year is 500 enough for next year.
I think we need to up that because there's an individual who has applied and those numbers haven't hit yet. The first payment, I think, was, they come at odd times, but it was like 400 hours. And she, I believe unemployment is how many weeks? 26? No, 12, 13, I don't know, they changed it
Yeah.
so often, so.
So you think it's going to roll to next
Yes, I
year?
think we're going to need, I don't know exactly how much, because Georgia didn't have a figure. We were trying to figure it out.
So 1,500 or 1,000?
I would say at least 1,000. I'm sorry, my system isn't responding.
Okay. You do want to up that to 1,000 and we can,
Okay.
if that's a known. Workers' comp, this one's at least going in the right direction. So I guess the revised estimates are roughly, what, 78,253 versus the 86. I think that would be it. The other estimate that was just, it's a couple $100 different was the liability insurance, but the number we have is within $200 of the revised estimate.
So what does that make the bottom line then, Joe?
1,147,854.
So lower than the current year, slightly.
Right, the majority of that is the
The
copay
insurance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
amount being netted, so that's.
Okay, I'll make a motion to okay that.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Right.
26th. Just have to put it myself.
Does the employee contribution show as revenue on the revenue page when we,
Nope.
how do you,
It's an expenditure credit, it's not an expense to the town, so the way we're doing it is incorrect. The right way is employee pays X and the town pays the difference.
Yeah.
That's the way everyone else does it, that's the correct way to do it. So we changed that methodology to,
One million, 147,254.
before.
8.
Larry, I'm sorry.
There you go, Mark. There you go.
So, I guess we'll come back to contingency. That would be the next show. So Public Works. So we're going to help with. So for Public Works, are they fully staffed, so that other person,
Yeah,
okay,
fully staffed.
all right. So the question that came up before, and I don't know if it's just easier to reset, then is the salary number then should be the same as prior year or not higher?
Correct.
And then we would adjust based upon settling the contract?
Correct.
So the regular labor line should be 522, 155 then,
That's,
for that?
yes. And again, I probably have some salary numbers, I don't know how we want to do that, or we can go back and do all the salaries after. I don't know how confusing we want to make it. But I needed to know if that was reset to 522 to be able to.
Well, the only thing to that is that Chris and Bunny did receive an increase because they're not part of the Teamsters Union.
They did.
They did.
All right, I was gonna ask that question. I had that question, and then I thought I looked at it, and they didn't.
Yes.
Okay, so that's gonna change my math. So they got an increase from last year to this year.
Correct.
So the other thing I would like to do, because of, with the union coming in, is to separate, I'm I'm calling them administrative, I know Chris isn't quite administrative, but to separate those two salary lines from the general labor, because it'll just be easier for us to manage that type of thing, because right now the salaries are all together, so that's just a presentation, but
No, that makes sense.
just so we'll
So you're
know.
gonna make a new one.
A new line, administrative labor, or I don't know what to call it, administrative,
Administrative salary.
administrative salary, so that would be, I think it'd be easier for us to figure out what we're updating going forward. Okay, so their calculations have to be changed. Okay. So, well, we can reset that number. Do I, again, I guess it comes down to, do we want to go back and do all the salaries or try to do this one now, if I can do math?
If you've got the number, we may as well do it.
Okay.
So you've got the number calculated in with the union increase?
I think I have the calculation of what, yeah, that would be.
I can double check, even though I don't know.
All right, well, I guess the number, I'm not, I guess I'm not sure on what the rate, 2018 rate is for Public Works. This is the Public Works Director and the Public Works Clerk. So I don't know how I'm rolling that. Am I rolling it in two hops, or, like, I don't know what the current number is.
I don't either.
Okay.
I think I have.
Really hasn't.
'Cause I think I know what the rate was for 2017.
I have a list, hold on just a second.
Right here. Sorry.
I didn't grab it. No, that's 17.
This isn't it?
17, 18. I have 18, 19.
Yeah, but I can't even do the math off the
So 18, 19, there's no increases. Well, if we're rolling the 522, there'd be no increases to start. In that number, but.
Too many pages.
You have 18, 19 right here. We have 17, 18. You have 18,
16,
19.
17.
Yeah,
That's 17, 18.
all right, well, that says 18, 19, that's what I was asking.
That,
Ignore that?
yeah.
All right.
And then I think, where is she?
So this is the number it needs to be?
I believe so. That I calculated it out with the last year, this year's 2% and then 2.25.
Okay, so last year, all right. Just last year and 2.25, no, 2%.
2% for 17, 18, and 2.25 for 18, 19.
Okay, but 17, 18, and 2% would already be in the budget, no? That's what
Correct,
you
but their
said.
salary increases by that, so whatever that calculation is, times 2.25, gives us those numbers.
But if they're already, I don't know,
I did it from the beginning. I did it from 16, 17, added 2%, then the total of those two times 2.25.
Yeah, because you need the 18, 19 number.
I need the 18, 19 number, but that's
Right.
why I thought you said they already got the 18 rate.
No, they effective March just recently. So
Oh,
the 16, 17 numbers, the 17, 18 numbers don't reflect the correct amount. So she had to increase that and then put the next factor on for the 18, 19 number.
all right, well, that's what I did, but what you said, I thought was different than that, so I was confused for a minute. All right. So if we're gonna break out,
And she's not, I don't think that her full hours come out of that line. Doesn't part of her time come out of another line?
Well, I split
You
the.
split
I
it already?
them.
Okay.
all right, so for the administrative labor for 18-19 then, would be 109,554. That's the new one. So 109,554. Well, so he's already getting, because they're not following the union, so that one's a done deal, because that's approved because they're not union, yes?
Yes.
Okay. So the other one, then we're gonna leave it to 522, and that's gonna go in contingency or how we're gonna do it, because we don't know what that is. So that 543 is gonna go back to the 5,
Be 522 less 109,
You gotta make it less than 522.
yes.
right?
412,
Right,
601.
by the admin salary.
412, 601, so if I came up with that. So that'd be the 522, 155 minus 109, 554.
Yeah, but that wouldn't be right, because the 109,554 is the new number.
For
And it has an
18-19.
inflation factor on it for
Okay.
the increases, or the increased number on it.
Right.
So you need to take out,
I'll give you that.
So it's
Yeah.
gonna be like 415.
yeah,
It's 107, 143 would have been the equivalent.
okay. So 415.12, right?
18? Unless I did a typo.
You said 107, 143?
Yeah,
No, $2, because it's off of 155.
fine. Yeah, I typed in 125 instead of
Yeah,
22.
so-
Got that, okay.
Say again?
So the
415.
number that says 543, 169 should be 415 and $12, $415,012. And then if you're gonna separate out the admin salaries, that number should be 109,554.
For 2018, right?
Correct.
Mhm.
So now we need to take the 415,012 and add 2.25%.
Nope, you're not doing anything, because we're in mediation on that contract.
Oh.
That'll be a different
That is
cal-
completely
Yeah.
different.
The contingency calculation, we'll have to come back to that, but for this budget,
We'll put in 415,012.
415,012, yeah. So the related question is because of the increases, does the overtime number need to increase?
No, Chris
Well,
does not.
we're running pretty, less than the 15 that was budgeted.
This one out, just because the salaries were not that, so 15,
Okay.
still happy with that number?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, because unlike Phil, Chris doesn't get overtime.
All right, so that. Fill in the rest of the lines. Does anyone have any question on the rest of the lines? That was all I wanted to get straight.
Several dropped, the only real change, I guess, is dues and subscriptions. There's probably some backup on that. 'cause I
That has
asked
to
the
do with the
question.
GPS that was put on the trucks.
Oh, okay. So what does that make the bottom lines go, instead of 1,140,000?
121,466. 1,121,466. Which is slightly lower than last year also.
it's another budget that dropped, I'll have to make a motion to pass, moving the ones that decreased.
Sure, I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
So what will we do at that one, if you're in arbitration though, what will
We'll have
we
to
do?
cut a contingency.
Because that won't be settled anytime soon.
If I had my druthers, yeah, it would have been a year ago, but
Oh.
they show up at the table unprepared, so
Okay.
we'll see. It's ridiculous, but we're in mediation right now.
Well, if it's not by June 30, we're gonna have to look at booking something.
Yep.
So we might need to do something for June
Yeah,
30.
I mean,
Also,
I'll
it's
know
not
more in the
settled.
next couple of weeks. We'll see where we go.
Aye.
Did we not vote?
I don't think we
No.
voted.
Oh, because they
They've asked a
started.
question.
I asked the question
Right.
before we
Okay,
moved the question.
all right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
So we just put $2 million.
I know, because now we're getting something done.
Quarter of our budget, 10 minutes.
All right. So since this is here now and
Oh, sorry.
information hot off the press, we can
Uh-oh.
do waste disposal.
All right, so, yeah. So there's a $4 per ton increase in MSW for Mira. So we moved to a long-term contract last year, or the year before. So went from $68 to $72. Just for the record, that is offset. There's income that they get to subsidize that amount. So that real dollar amount is around $90. There's a lot of changes that are coming. Barb looked and I looked at what our total numbers were compared to what is being paid to Mira by the private haulers. And we are, believe it or not, based on the number of the increase, we feel we're okay. We're all right this year. I'm a little worried. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, at the transfer station, we're starting to work on that. Instead of just small brush and debris to go there, we actually have huge trunks of trees and branches, and I think just from this storm, it's gonna be hit, we're down for the year. But I still think the $100,000 is a good number. We looked at it, and compared to what we spent and where we're at, despite the increase, I still think we're gonna be okay. So that was my biggest concern, because I didn't wanna under budget, not knowing how that was gonna affect things.
Right.
So at least for next year, we're okay.
All right. So what does the increase go into effect next year or right away? So it's approved now?
It goes in for July 1st.
For July?
Yep.
Okay.
Joe, is this expense after the fees we collect for the stickers? So this is the total expense and then the fees for the stickers offset?
Not, well, that's a valid revenue because they're not direct. So that's, the fees are in revenue.
So the total expense for the transfer station last year that went out to MSW was $230,000. From that, $110,000 was paid by outside private. It kind of carried over a little bit. I take that back. We ran the numbers again. Yeah, 132, so it left us just shy of 100. So we're okay, but quite a bit of money's spent there. And there's some significant changes coming due to some legislation that was passed and some changes that have to go into the contract. And then there's some areas where we're getting credit for energy credits to help offset the expense that are going to go away in 2027. So I think, again, for this year, we're okay. We are looking at, now that hopefully Chris is done with all these storms, start to look at some changes and increase in some of the fees at the transfer station, because we're paying for tires to go away. Waste oil that we take in, we should be maybe have a max of like 10-gallon containers. People show up with 10-gallon containers. So we really have to start to look at some of the things that were taken in. And then bulky. We did have someone down there around the holidays, just kind of looking at what's brought in, how many times people are coming in, what they're bringing in, and that type of thing. So we need to address some of those.
It's too bad we can't put a scale there and just charge by the pound.
Yeah, the scale, unfortunately, I did look into that, but it's gonna cost well over $300,000 to put a scale in, because it's on the landfill and where it is and all different types of things. But we have some ideas of some things that we can do, so hopefully I'll have more details on that as we go.
So this budget is $3,000 less than last year.
That might be your cue, Dave.
Who wants to jump on the bandwagon? I'll make a motion, we accept waste disposal for $310,750.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstained? All right, so I'm gonna jump to Rec Authority.
Where are we going?
Rec Authority,
Oh, okay,
505.
yeah.
All right, so just to start the conversation, just based about what we talked about at the workshop and looking at what the numbers are. So I went back to what their fund balance was last year, because they said they're aiming for break even, even though they were at a positive 80,000 as of February 28th. So we'll assume break even, and they'll still have $211,000 in equity at June 30.
So it was 304 last year and it's now 211?
304 was the current balance as of February. 211 was the beginning balance, but they were showing $88,000 of current year income. That's what I was asking her about. So, based upon the conversation of losing the pool revenue and those couple other things, she was projecting more break even. So I said, well, just for analysis purposes, again, to start the discussion, I'll put it back to the 211 if operations are gonna be, they expect operations to be break even. So,
I'd argue that going forward, we would sort of consistently look at the end of somebody's year. Because,
it's easier.
yeah.
I just didn't, it didn't provide that, they didn't
Yeah.
have that.
But that also kind of washes out any of their cash flow issues and all that stuff. And
Right.
get you consistent numbers, so.
Right, there's no cash flow, because they start in July, so that's when she said to collect all the fees, so
Yeah,
that,
so,
so cash flow is not an issue, looking
Yeah.
at July 1. So just looking at their budget, 747 or 745, say, okay, well, 10% reasonable equity. They don't have the same issues that town is a little bit higher because we got 10 things going on versus one. So that would leave 136,000. Haddam would be, we would have 59% of that using the same math that we pay in. That would mean there's $81,000 in equity that relates to the town of Haddam conceptually. So my initial gut was 20,000, but then looking at the budget, I said, okay, just make a nice round number, 100,000, take off the 15,850. At least for year one, because we don't have good information, at least that's some use of that equity, and they do have, 3,000 in contingency also.
It's exactly what I was thinking on the way home Saturday. It's funny you say that. Just to have a round number to get a baseline and then compare that 211 now to
Right, it gives
next year.
us time to get better information and talk about some other things, so, and it kind of gives us something back that's not gonna impact our operations for 19.
For continued discussion purposes, anyway, I'll make that motion that we would approve this one, HK Rec Authority at $100,000 even.
Second.
Any other?
Joe,
Comments or discussion?
only, I don't disagree with the concept, I just think the concept would also make the case, which nobody's presented, of cutting down to 20,000 or something, and, that, so there's gotta be some period of time. I think if the goal is to come up with their feedback on a more realistic, retained surplus, we ought to do it over time.
Right, that's what it
And
is.
so this would be over, what, maybe potentially 5 years, we could keep up this?
If we kept it at 16,000, it'd be roughly exactly 5 years, assuming
5 years.
to straight break even. So like I said, I think this is a start, and it gives us time to get more information and see where the numbers go. And that's all we're asking, is to be part of.
Part of that discussion.
She'd be proposing a lower number to be a bigger reduction this year?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
What I don't want to do is, I don't want to head down that path too fast either, because all of a sudden, that may or may not get them in trouble, but it also messes up our budget. That's great to spend all your surplus in 1 year, what do you do the next year?
Exactly.
So, okay, but given
we're
that it
looking
looks
just-
like a 5-year thing,
Right, just so everybody can level out and see what's going on.
I support that, I'm okay with that.
But so the 95,000 that they're not getting, if we approve this, they need to find that in further donations or go into their reserves?
No, well, the
It's only
theory is to go into the reserves.
Reserves, yeah.
Because they have
Because we're,
reserves.
because
It's a big
you
bite.
said.
It's not
they don't-
95,000, it's like 15,000.
It's only 15.
115 on a...
Oh, I'm sorry. I
Yeah,
was
we're not-
looking at their
we're not being that
135,
aggressive.
which is
No,
the
just-
total.
That's
Sorry.
only 15.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's-
So it'll be a 15,000
Working with them, we're
Then-
not.
cut.
You bet.
And
I'm done. Which is an interesting concept, because really all they did was create a budget, project some revenues, and then charge the towns the rest.
Right, but I think they should be settling like the region and,
Yes.
in some way, just to look at how did the year go and kind of push that back and not just keep, if they're having good years, just keep dropping it in.
All for it. Thank you.
Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? So cultural and recreation rate close to that for efficiency purposes? 515?
Joe, just to clarify, what you were offering Scott that day when he was here was for the town to perform some services for village parks, and that could then be to their benefit.
Well, so instead of getting funding money and putting it in a different bank account,
Yeah.
is if we were doing tree work anyway, that if we can just tie that in and fit it within the public works budget, or if not, then we would deal, but just kind of, again, try to stop moving cash to outside organizations, but still support them. Again, we did say we were supporting them already, because we mow the lawn, we plow the driveway, so there already is some in kind happening. This would just expand.
And obviously, I wasn't here last Monday night, but prior to when I spoke to Scott about his budget and, you know, how does he do the trees and all that, I said it would probably make the most sense for him to identify what those trees are, because if we're having the tree company already go out,
Yeah.
right, and he said usually it's not an urgent matter, I mean, sometimes obviously it is, you have to take care of it, but it would make the most sense that if the tree company was already out doing work and we identified those, it would be more cost effective to have it done then than necessarily having him hire someone to come out and do it separately.
Right.
Yeah, oh, I get that.
Yeah.
I think it just sounded like he would prefer to have the cash.
Yeah, well, when I don't know what was discussed last week because I wasn't here, but that was what we had agreed on, funding the budget at what we had funded the budget at.
I should have asked this tonight, he was here, it really didn't sink in. When I look at all the numbers and add them up, if you forget about tree trimming for a minute, they've got one in leaf maintenance, 2,000, insurance 900, brush hogging 850. So if you add all of that up, you've got 3,750, not talking about tree trimming. And we're only asking for 3,500. So is the tree trimming really paid out of 3,500? Do they have enough for everything else? If you add all of their numbers up, you come up with more like $6,000. He's got tree trimming 2,500.
Right.
Lawn leaf maintenance, 2,000, insurance 900, brush hogging 850.
So you said that his total budget was $7,000 to $8,000.
Total.
About 3,500 that they pay out of their nest egg, and the
Oh,
other
okay,
half were paid
okay,
out of ours.
okay.
Yeah, they do have 80, what you said, 85. I don't have anything officially from him other than that conversation. Everybody else has given me something. It's just an email, but
I guess my only comment is, if you want to handle it, that's fine, but how do I determine? So he's saying tree trimming between 2,500 and 4,000. So when we get to a certain number, I just say
That was gonna be my
stop?
question, right.
Like,
And
how do you
put a
want us to
value on
yeah, how do you want
your
us to
service?
monitor that? I'm just,
yeah, no, it's, again, it was just
yeah, I mean, I'm not,
an idea if it doesn't work administratively, but it was just, because we were talking about the other in-kind, we were doing already.
yeah, no, I get it.
So I just kind of continued down that path with the trees.
Yeah, from that perspective, it might make it more complicated.
What was his point? But if it's a real benefit to them, then that's $3,500 they don't have to spend on tree trimming.
Yeah, I mean, if that's the number. I mean, I think it makes the sense, like having that conversation of saying, okay, if you have a tree on whatever street, and, you know, have them done at the same time, to help, to save money all the way around, I think is smart, but I just would want to know how that would work.
Well, the best way to handle that would be to pay the bill out of that line.
Yeah, okay.
Instead of sending the money, just
Yeah.
if you're coordinating that way, if whatever the amount is
Yep.
that we want to support,
Okay,
pay it out of that line, but that doesn't really save us the money, it just.
it just accounts for it.
Right. But that's the middle of the road. So at least it's spent.
How much money do they have in their account?
85,000.
100?
But he's the only one that said that they're using it. So, for their budget. All the other organizations that have been saving up cash. They haven't been using the
They're
reserves.
saving for something.
Yeah,
Yeah, they use about 4,000 a year out of there.
exactly. Plus, we don't want them barricading the road to the office building.
Did he threaten it?
Kind of.
The tree comes out and says,
That wasn't lost on me.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'll make a motion, we approve,
What we got, well.
okay, we didn't have a discussion about the other ones, did we? The only one we were really discussing was Village Park.
Right, yeah, I'm not sure if they're really all separate lines or one department, but right now it's set up as one department. They are really technically separate lines, but,
Well, before motion, do you want to discuss the other ones then?
yeah.
Okay.
Is there something in particular that's going up with Haddam River Days?
The fees went up. And the fireworks, they went up last year, so because they were canceled due to weather in 16, we were able to use money out of 16 and 17 to pay the increase that happened this year. In addition, Park and Rec is actually, we're gonna combine their family fun night, and they're gonna do it on the same night as the fireworks.
And parades is back where it was because last year they spent
Money on
$7,000 buying
flags.
flags, right?
Correct.
So it just basically puts it back where it used to be. So now I'll make a motion for the entire 515 line, culture and recreation, to approve it for 358, 231. Which, by the way, is the decrease. What a decrease.
You're
I'll second
in
that.
charge of the
Of
increase.
course you will.
What was that number? It trailed off the end.
358, 231.
Yeah, I have.
Something's wrong.
Uh-oh.
That's what I have in my book.
Yeah, but,
256, 956.
right, that's, oh, no, that's missing the 1275. Bad formula. 358, 231 is correct. I was seeing the same numbers.
Yeah, that may have so much going on.
Yeah, it's missing the
Yeah.
last one.
Yep.
Aye. Have a second, and any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Passes. All right, youth and family services before we get into the other stuff. That's 405.
Not that knowing that number does you any good.
Yeah, it doesn't help.
Nope.
Yeah, I didn't pull out my. So again, the analysis on this one is they have $100,000, $89,000, which is about the same number they've had for many years as unrestricted equity. $15,000 increase in the request.
So percentage-wise, that's a substantial increase. Why was that?
They didn't have a fundraiser that they normally have this year. Because their director left.
That was the chart I was talking about Saturday. 65 and older. 16% of the Haddam population, 20% of the, they don't have percentages now, I figured it out. 16% of our population is over 65, 20% of theirs. because of the trailer park, most likely.
What it's worth, my opinion, is when they didn't have a fundraiser, that's what their reserve is for.
I get the feeling that they're doing a lot of work that needs to be done. I assume the Board of Selectmen didn't reduce it because you feel that way too?
I think Youth and Family Services is a very important organization to the town. They have grown substantially.
Because their caseloads have?
Their caseload, and now they take insurances where they didn't take insurance before. You know, they do rely on a lot of grants to run. And we've talked about, so there is a new director who just came in March. And from what I understand, she does have a great capability of fundraising. That was one of the reasons why they hired her. I have not met her yet. There are some concerns for duplication of services, of some of the things that Jessica does. So, you know, we do money for a field bank, they do money for a field bank. They do baskets around the holidays, we do baskets around the holidays. So we need to talk about that. There was a little, unfortunately, I mean, and Charlie Masunas is a great guy, but him not being the one that was there, just kind of filling in, there was a lot of not stepping on turf type conversations, unfortunately. And I think that, you know, to be quite honest, I'm not sure how they do all that. That's something that the new director, we need to have conversations about. I think Jessica does a great job with doing it on the money that we do it on. I don't know. I had mixed feelings about funding the extra money, because, to Mr. Longren's point, you know, but I also, I don't know, they seem very concerned with where we were at with their budget. And when I had conversations with Carol Dupuy, who unfortunately could not come to our selectmen meeting because she was home with the flu. So on that Monday, when we had our meeting, the new director was just new. She was in DC with all the staff, and Carol was home with the flu. So, you know, I let her know that when I thought we were going to have the cuts that we were getting for the non-funding of the ECS, that I was actually looking to make a cut from their budget, not an increase in their budget. And when I asked, you know, I said, that's a 20% increase. It's substantial. What was the reason for it? And that was the answer that I got.
There's no question they do great work. I've volunteered for different committees over the years. But I think if we're to be consistent, we've got to look at the perfect reason why you would use a reserve is that one of your regular fundraisers didn't happen and it will come back.
Yeah, I'm not disputing the consistency.
No,
It's really, somehow this one is different than, say, the cutting HK Rec by 15. This seems like it might have a direct impact on people in a harder way, but that's why I was asking.
Yeah, I mean, I really tried this time. I mean, they do counseling. So, you know, Barb and I, we got requests. So the mental health board obviously is defunct now, but we got a request for $120,000 from Middlesex Hospital that came in after the fact, when we were done with the budget for mental health services. So I think that we all know there's a huge need there, right? It's just a question of where are people going and how are they getting there. When CRT sends a letter to the town asking for support and services, they talk about services that are offered for mental health. So I don't know, Joanne, if we're hurting them or not.
I guess that's all I'm wondering. Because usually I
mean,
understand the
I'm
consistency part.
I'm encouraged to the fact, I will say, encouraged to the fact that they are now taking insurance, as were before they weren't. So that has to help. I mean, again, insurance doesn't pay.
Do they show that in their revenues?
I don't,
No, I don't know what they're calling it, but are they calling it program fees?
no. The other thing I will tell you is their accountant, their new accountant is phenomenal. I used to work with her, and she's just really good. So I can tell you as far as accuracy and reporting, and I don't know what was done before, but their books are gonna be good. I would guess, I don't know. I really don't, I can't answer you on that.
I just thought I'd ask, is anybody in the mood to split the difference on
Yep, I was gonna
15,000?
say,
Yeah.
that'll
But with
cost
the understanding
everybody.
that it may go back once their fundraising is in place. So we
Yeah.
don't want the base to be,
Yep.
I'd split it on the low end.
Jeez.
85.
I'll make the motion, just split it right down the middle, ask everybody in town roughly to kick in one extra buck. So that'd make it $87,500 rather.
any other,
Give me a second. Mike, give me a second. Might not
Oh.
happen.
any discussion, sorry.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Chris is here. Who said Chris? Joanne is for Chris, so now Chris is here.
Right.
Right, okay.
All right. So how much energy does everybody have? So ambulance or capital?
May as well start.
Do you want me to give you an update on ambulance?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
if we
sure.
can get more information,
Might
yes,
as
that
well.
would be,
Sure.
that would be great.
I don't have much, but I have some. So I met with Hunter's ambulance, and Barbara and I did actually. And first of all, it was reassuring to know that if, God forbid, our ambulance goes defunct, they cover us for mutual aid. I guess they've done that before. It's part of what they do. They don't charge us any extra. They just cover whatever they need to cover. They used to, I guess, back in the day, so these licenses of what you need for transporting and 911 calls. It really makes sense to regionalize this. This is really where the conversation's been going, to regionalize ambulance services. And what's very difficult is you have different town leaders, you have different licenses held different ways, and then you have groups of volunteers who are very territorial over their, association, which is understandable. They, when you have somebody saying, I'm gonna volunteer and go do something, and then you're saying, hey, thanks but no thanks, and they're trained and they're giving up their time, it's really difficult to say, we don't want you to do this. So we talked about what a regional model would look like, and we talked about, for them, they contract to Middletown, and part of that contract is to Portland. So because of the size of Middletown and all the ambulances that they have out, if there's a 911 call, since they already have a crew out and they're doing transports and non-emergency type things, it's pretty simple that if they have a 911 call, they just send the closest ambulance to Portland and it works. So we talked about something like that. I did send an email out to all of the other select women that are affected in the towns that we have. For them, they also told me they have a presence in Old Saybrook. So really for them to try to move around and, handle these calls might be something that would work. For them to just handle the 500 and something calls that come into Haddam isn't probably worth anyone's while. It's a losing proposition. I mean, it's about $1,000 a call and they're taking in anywhere from $400 to $600. So you need to be able to put a crew that you already have out there, as the example I used previously, at work to do that. Would there be other ambulance companies out there to look at? Sure, there could be, although Hunter's is in the area. And they have their own paramedics, and they work in addition with Middlesex. So I think it was a good conversation. They didn't come in there and say, we were gonna charge you this and a proposal for that. They really seemed to think that they have their own mechanics. So instead of our ambulance association going out for mechanics, they have 4 licensed mechanics there that could do the work. So that's something that they could incorporate in-house. Everyone has their own billing. We use, Haddam pays a piece, every town pays a piece. They have their own billing department. So to really bring all of this together under an umbrella, I think makes a lot of sense. Haddam, again, the comment was, I think the Ambulance Association or however started out with paying ERM $150,000 a year, and now they're well up around $325,000, $350,000 a year. And that's not sustainable for anyone. And it's no secret of how it operates. They seem very well versed in it. They've been doing it since 1989. So we said that we would have a conversation with them and the other select women to just see where it goes. So I felt good about that. We talked about, and they said, if you need to borrow an ambulance from us, you can. And they do that type of thing. They do repairs on the ambulance. There's a lot of resources that are there. I don't know why. The rumor was, don't call them. They're not going to come and help. But they seemed extremely willing to help. I don't know if you have anything else you want to add that I left out. No?
No, I think they were very accommodating, and I think the next thing is to have a sit down and meet with the other selectmen.
And I think realistically, it could work without us having to spend any more money, or even, my goal would be less money than what we're spending right now that we're donating to the Ambulance Association.
You want this in place by July 1st?
It can't happen that fast. But my biggest fear, Joanne, is this. If the Ambulance Association goes out and decides to spend what they have left of their money on an ambulance, they don't have a lot of money left over. So what happens? What happens if they go defunct? Like, the responsibility of making sure we're covered is mine. So I don't want to chance that. I don't want to chance that on anybody's life. So they said they used to just put an ambulance in South District, or they would plant one down here and they would cover. And they were well aware of the numbers. They had all the response numbers. They had who had the different PSAs and how it worked. And they were well aware that Haddam was covering 20% of mutual aid calls for other towns. I think that, today was a day where I met with them. Then I went up to Mira, and Mira's saying how they're going to be, making all this change, and due to the legislation again, putting an act together, and how this is going to be cost. And I think that as much as the intent of the other select people being sympathetic to Haddam bailing them out, and then not realizing they have a problem, I think it's a lot easier to have this entity that's very familiar with how it works, work with us and help us to put a game plan together. Because, you get thrown curveballs every day, and what order does it go in, right? And I don't want to see this get pushed out even longer. I mean, this is an issue that's been going on a really long time. And we've allowed it to a certain degree because we knew, but the time's going to come in the next, I think, 6 to 18 months where they're not going to have any money. And from what I'm told, they have 5 volunteers left. 5 people riding the ambulance, that's it. They have 5. And, and I don't want to get into this, I mean, it's going to be what it is, but, the fire department is willing to kick in and help, but then the fire department says they'll lose members if they do that, and it's just like, I know we all need to be adults, but not everybody plays well together in the sandbox, unfortunately. So, they asked me about Haddam Neck, and I said, you are happy, I have no problems.
We're good.
You play very nice with East Hampton, and that doesn't seem to be an issue, because that was a concern of how they were going to split territory with Haddam Neck. But for now, I said Haddam Neck was okay with East Hampton. So I was encouraged by it. Will I have an answer in a week? No, but I feel like we made some headway.
So just what could this look like then? You're talking about some type of regional ambulance
Yeah, so
that the towns would pay into, and we'd pay hunters to manage it? Is that? to kind of?
Yeah, they said they would need to figure out how much extra staff they might need, but they really seem to think like the mechanics of it, I mean, they need to look at the numbers, so they said, we have a place in Old Saybrook and we have a place in Middletown. Maybe they buy or use one of their buildings, let's just say, hypothetically, this is not, but let's just say they plant themselves in Haddam. Then they can do their calls from there, and if that crew, so the whole argument has been, why do you need 2 people to sit on Route 81 and wait for a call that you're paying, okay? But let's just say they're doing a transport at Saybrook and Haddam, or they're here, and there's a 911 call and it goes into dispatch. Valley Shore just calls out to them and they send whatever ambulance in the area that's closest.
Is there a time factor?
No.
In response?
No, because the response time has been 4 to 5 minutes anyways, and that would be something that would be, you'd have to make sure it wouldn't be any longer. I mean, all these factors would be looked at. I mean, we wouldn't be going for something less, but my feel is, for the 100,000 or 125,000 or 85 we've done, 85 we've done, 125, in that ballpark, I think it can be done.
Because we'd have Killingworth and Chester and
Right,
Essex and whoever.
right. But, I mean, you have, Chester's trying to make this major decision to go to a health district because their people are retiring, and you would think for them to spend $45,000 for a health district, you were asking them to break an arm. So like, that's my point, like, how am I'm trying to get the attention, and the intent is there, like Lauren's like, I'm really interested, I want to try to get this done, but it can't just, you need somebody who has the data, you have somebody who has the information that's going to say, okay, based on your number of calls, based on this, based on that, this is what it's going to be. And I think that's a good place to start. And I didn't get the feeling, and again, I mean, they're in business obviously to make money, but I didn't get the feeling that they were coming in saying, when we were sharing the information with them, and some of it, it's public, they were just like amazed at the amount of money that was going out the door. So it wasn't like they wanted to come in, they had no interest in trying to bid against the other contract or anything. They just said, that wouldn't work, that model doesn't work. It's a model, and Joe has preached this for a very long time, it's a sinking ship. So, but again, because they have those resources in place, they have the mechanics, they have the people doing the billing, they have the staff, they have the ambulance, they don't need to go out and buy an ambulance. They have what they need to do it. And I think it makes sense. I mean, it's early still.
How do you get the administration and the other towns' attention to?
We have a meeting and we start to push it, because this is the other thing. If they're not responding to their calls, and I've said this before, and I don't, you get the state involved, but they get reported. If they're not responding to their calls and Haddam's responding to all their calls, then you make the call. But it just might be easier to just do it. I think it makes sense financially, and it could make, I think it works. And it would solve the problem.
So what does that do for an ambulance for 2018-19?
I'm not gonna make that decision, that's why I know.
Or what does it mean to operating in 18-19? Is this a transition year to get to that?
Listen, somebody's gonna be unpopular, so it might as well be me. Yeah, I think it is. I don't see them holding on another year. I just don't, and again, and I've said this to them, to the board, I mean no disrespect by what they've contributed, but they have 5 people.
Well, I was gonna say, if they have 5 people, there's not a lot of unpopularity that go around.
Right. I mean, they have 5 people, and what they do in, where did he tell me, Berlin?
Yes.
Berlin, they handled the calls they started handling the calls during the day, because that's the time, obviously, when people are at work. And then they were having the volunteers cover at night, but then it became an issue to get the volunteers cover at night. So like, when do you want to call an ambulance? During the day, when you're gonna have somebody there in 4 minutes, or at night when you have somebody there in 10 minutes? So they started slowly and they worked their way. Now maybe there's a way to do a hybrid, maybe there is a way, which we've talked to them about, where there's coverage for hunters to do it here, and then the volunteers take it over. But I just think it's cleaner. Insurance is cleaner, everything, it's just separate. I mean, you know, you don't want to worry about something, a monopoly either, right? You don't want to be, okay, it's this now and there, but they didn't seem to work that way, and they didn't seem to run in their models that way, and they used the town of Berlin as an example.
Which is one of my clients, so I could check
Okay.
how they think it.
I mean, obviously, there's a lot of due diligence in this. It's just a conversation that was said, but I think it's important to share that information. And I was encouraged.
So back to the ambulance
Yeah.
question. They have 0 ambulances right now.
Yeah, so this is the
They just
thing.
fixed one to get it.
What I would hate to have happen is the board to vote on 0, 0, 0 all the way across the board. That's why I said, and then have the chief of the ambulance association and the people that are involved to just be like, okay, what did you do? I don't think that's fair to them.
No.
You know, I don't want them to be blindsided, but I think there needs to be, I think we need to have a workshop or some type of conversation and start having these discussions.
It's gonna take a while to get this in place. It's not gonna happen.
But if you, my other fear is, so I'm gonna play devil's advocate to you, as you do many times to us, if we fund it, then are we just Band-Aiding it for another year? Because we just can't. We can't keep Band-Aiding it.
Well, you're Band-Aiding it if you don't dedicate that year to coming up with a permanent
That's
solution.
true. It's just a
If you
transition.
fund it for a year, that gives everyone a year to make a transition,
Right.
to agree to a definite plan with a definite deadline, and then we say, next year, we're not going
Absolutely.
forward with
Agree
this
with
model after this.
But the
But my
only,
question is the ambulance. If we fund it and we have a year of transition, that's a great idea. I think we all agree on that. They need an ambulance. So what do we do
Can
about
they
the
rent,
ambulance?
I guess
Well,
Hunter's is willing
they
to
can't.
rent them one or something?
they can't. They don't need to buy one. And I don't think, you know, if this is gonna take place, why would they need one? Hunter's has how many ambulances?
Yeah, I'd be shocked if you couldn't lease an ambulance,
But do
whether
they
it's from
need
Hunters or
funding?
somebody else.
They need funding for the lease?
I have no idea. I have not had, I mean, they still had $240-something thousand in there, right? How much did the ambulance
Something like
association
that,
say they
yeah.
had?
I think I had 9 years old, so I'm not sure.
Doug gave us a QuickBooks,
I wrote down 340.
I wrote down 330. so-
okay,
Yeah.
so that's what they have. I mean, I don't think it makes sense to them. I mean, again, I can't speak for their board, but I can't imagine why you, I mean, I guess you'd lease it for a year? I don't know. That doesn't make sense, but again, remember what I said, Hunter said, if our ambulance, I said, if my ambulance association closed tomorrow, what happens? And they said, we do mutual aid. And we'll help you with that for as long as you need us to. That's what they said.
Sounds good.
And then they would charge the user of the service?
Yes,
or-
no, not the town. They
Okay.
charge the user of the
Well, this
service.
was the question we were asking
Yeah.
last year. If it went away, what would that look like? And
They
it's
charge,
just, I think there was a concern about wait times, that's all.
well, they're
Versus, that's what-
telling me that if they plant themselves, I mean, think about it. I mean, you can, from Randolph Road to, you can, again, going across the bridge is another story. But even for our ambulance on 81, I mean, you gotta make to certain parts of Haddam or Hingham and, you know. But usually when a call goes off, fire goes first, and then paramedics, and then that ambulance is to transport. So there are paramedics on scene.
Well, it depends on the type of call. Paramedics aren't dispatched for all of them.
Right.
Obviously, the more serious
Right.
ones, but
Right. You are correct.
by far, those
Yep.
all of them, so you're getting text on some.
Pretty much all the firefighters in the piece, so,
A lot of
I don't know
them
what
are.
the mix is, a lot.
About 20, 24 on this side are. So, I don't, you know,
What's the number?
One question, what kind of controls do we have over their funds for the ambulance? Because they've been getting it they've been building this fund through receipts of their services. But, you know, say there's a transition, and all this falls into place. At the end of the day, what happens to
It's
all
their
that
money.
money?
It's their money.
It's theirs.
Correct. And I thought they started, I remember when I was in the Board of Finance, I thought they had about $1 million, what they started with. Does that sound right?
Seems a little bit high.
So I thought it was around that. I could be wrong.
I
I
don't
don't think
remember
it's that
exactly.
far
Well,
off.
because they were purchasing their own vehicles
Right,
at that point.
and the thing is, it's a losing proposition. I mean, they're
Yeah,
never
no,
gonna
I
make
understand.
back, I mean, especially paying out to that vendor $300 and something thousand. You're taking in four, I mean, you know, the numbers are here.
Okay, well, I guess what I'm
So I
I'm
guess
going
what
at
you're
in a
asking
roundabout
is,
way is.
If they have the money, what happens?
Could they fund their operations out of that money and save us this budget money?
Yes, it's their money. They could do,
But I mean, would they be willing to do that
For 1 year.
for 1 year?
I don't know. I
You know?
guess, if we don't send them money, that's what they'd have to do. I guess, I can't speak for them. But if,
I mean, and they'll still be able to throw a hell of a party at the end.
Well, yeah,
I don't know.
I don't think they can throw a party, I think they have to.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah. Yeah,
any nonprofit, the rules are pretty strict of what you do with your assets over this way.
Well, I don't know, our health organization, but they give donations to the local churches, which is nice, but I would have liked to see some of that money come back to our own coffers.
I mean, they're a 501c, so it's
Yeah.
their money.
But if they're at 330 now, they will pretty much use up most of their money.
Because we lowered what,
Now and,
what we were gonna give them this year.
again, they're running on a calendar basis. The 330 was out in February, so we're gonna be at June 30, and then, so just for perspective, we will run out of money before the end of 19, I think. Again, I have to go back and do the math.
And tell me one, I'm confused on where they stand on ambulances. I heard that one died.
One,
I thought the
one
other
they've been
one was running.
trying
Now
to-
I'm hearing people tell me that they're servicing us with bicycles.
They have one that's very old, that they'll use from time to time, and I guess they don't like to use the same ambulance every time. So the one that's called the newer one has had some service issues, that's the one they thought they could get more life out of, that they want to replace. And that just went in for service again, and they borrowed from Chester for a couple of days. But they could borrow, I
But
mean,
it's back on the road. So we have one ambulance.
we actually have two. We have one that's in better condition than the other. And Hunters is willing to
what-
lease them an ambulance if they needed one.
So we have, wait a minute, so now we're back to 2 serviceable ambulances. They're old, but we're back to 2 that run.
Yeah,
Okay.
last I knew, which was last Wednesday.
Okay. But-
Anything could have happened
but-
between then and now.
But all the other plans going away, they really need to buy an ambulance. But all the other plans might money that all up. I mean,
Right.
they need to replace one of
Right,
these.
they'd like to
ambulances.
replace one of their ambulances because of the age, because of this, of it going out of, you know, they don't
Yeah,
feel that
okay.
spending money on maintenance is smart,
Right.
you know, on something that needs to be replaced. That's all I mean, I don't know.
Certainly, well, just to be aware, they certainly could decide to go buy an ambulance tomorrow.
Of course they
also.
can.
Just,
It's their money. Yeah.
I did not get the sense that they, I mean, they look at it as their money on one hand, but they're part of it. I definitely got the feeling they're part of the team. They're not gonna say, okay, you're not gonna give us any money or whatever, we're gonna spend all our money on ambulance.
Well, if
I
they're
didn't
down
get
to,
that sense
if they're
at
down
all.
to 5 people riding, then, yeah, they,
Yeah, I mean, they're trying to I got the sense they would be more than happy to sit down and talk and work through whatever is the best solution. So I think for us to
Oh,
say, well, they might spend all their money on an ambulance tomorrow is,
right, and there's a piece of legislation in place, they call the Mobility Life Unit. And there's some type of study that they're all working on a board together that could make changes that would actually, regionalization would be a benefit of that. It's not coming yet, the study's not due till the end, we all know how those things go. The end of December, but he said you need to be aware that this is on the horizon when he sat with us to tell us, but I didn't have time to pull any research on that today.
So in the next 30 days, can a meeting be scheduled?
I'm trying to schedule a meeting, yes, within the next few weeks, but again, everybody is in budget mode, so that's, you know, I will do my best.
All right, well, I think we have to have this done before, I forget what the date is, middle of April? Yeah, we're coming,
but,
so I don't think we can wait.
No, I don't think you
We're gonna
can,
have to decide on something,
but,
at least temporarily.
but, just trying to put the pieces together,
Mhm.
having a hard time.
Mhm.
So let's say that the magic wand is waved, and tomorrow we wake up and we're regionalized and Hunter is the quarterback and so on and so forth. That still isn't free.
no,
So if we had to fund that plan,
Mhm.
is that
He's-
150 grand a year?
or less, I mean, he's, again, no, you know, this is a
No, I know,
right?
but I'm
So-
just trying to
so
get a sense.
The
of-
message that was sent was, we don't want to spend any more money than we already are. That was the message that was sent today. And how could they do it for that and/or less? They seem to think they could.
So if that's and the taxpayer saves, if you would, I mean, a big chunk of their money is subscriptions. Which, you know, I don't know how many people.
Keeping and billing and.
No, but I'm just saying, but the taxpayer doesn't see the billing, you know, what the taxpayer sees is, well, I don't subscribe, so my taxes went up by 10 or 20 bucks, but I don't subscribe.
What does subscribing do?
I'm not sure what that.
It's a donation. You
That's
don't-
the
Yeah, that's not
donation.
their model,
Right.
You don't pay for anything, you don't get a free ambulance by sending them
Oh.
money. You know that, right?
Yeah, but you get, but what I'm saying is that subscription wouldn't go out anymore because that
Correct,
whole plan doesn't exist.
correct.
Yeah, they wouldn't be fundraising.
They wouldn't be fun, yeah,
Right,
and the
right.
hunters wouldn't be.
No, the
funded.
reason I said that to you, Harlan, is there are a lot of people in town who felt that if they made a donation to the ambulance association, they'd have to pay for an ambulance if it showed up at their house, and that's not true.
Right, yeah.
But I think you were saying that in some way, an ambulance service is gonna have to be funded on some,
Yeah,
And
well,
ambulance, I mean, we're still gonna have to pay, but, you know, this thought of the town, I mean, there's no way the town wants to start to pay $300 and something thousand to an outside service to cover us, you know. So it's either we could hire people, or, you know, then it's more people to manage, more people to, you know, which costs money. And we could do part-time and save on the benefits, and we could do all those things. And maybe that's the answer, I don't know, but it makes sense to me. They have an organization that's been doing it since 1989.
Yeah, no,
They're
yeah,
out of Meriden,
yeah.
they're in Middletown, they're in Old Saybrook, they're in the area. They work very well with Middlesex Hospital. They take a ton of people to the shoreline emergency. They've been doing this. They have the staff, they have the mechanics, they have the billing, they have the ambulance, and they're willing to say, okay, we appreciate the need. We're not gonna charge you a penny to cover mutual aid. It's all gonna be on what we get from insurance. The town doesn't have to give us anything. You know, if they say, okay, we need $75,000 from the town to help pay for additional staff or whatever it is that it is doing, I'd much rather pay that out than worry about this huge burden of these huge dollar amounts coming down the road. And I would think we would all feel that same way.
So whatever number we put in there, we're not designating where it's going, go back to Harlan's point. So we need to put a number in here anyway,
In the,
budget.
okay.
But,
Well,
and
between,
I'm just saying whether that number then ends up
Well,
helping out the volunteer folks, or whether it ends up going to some privatized, renewal plan here, or whatever, it maybe makes the most sense to pick a number that kind of helps, that's kind of down the middle of all that.
right.
And as if that transition could happen within the year, terrific. If it doesn't, if it takes longer, well, that's too bad, but, okay?
I mean, the
But
board,
in either case, it's a realistic number to carry in the budget, and it funds either side. And then if the ambulance closes up their doors, we deal with them and their money down the road,
yeah, which is their money, so I guess, the only comment would be is that, I don't know how this money goes out to pay to the ambulance, but I wouldn't want to put it all out in a lump sum, all July 1st.
No,
No,
I think we do it,
hopefully we're gonna learn a lot between now and July
Yeah,
1st. but-
and maybe by July 1st, we find out that the best thing to do is for them to, maybe the regionalization thing starts to come together. The best thing for them to do is just burn down their money while it does come together, and we don't spend any of the money. But I think it would be a fallacy to fund it at zero, expecting something like that to happen.
Did they think at what you were proposing at the 85,000 from the town?
Yeah.
Did they think that it was possible they'd run out of money by July 1st, 19? Because you made a comment
Possibly.
before
Yeah,
that they...
I thought that's
Yeah,
kind of
so they
like,
thought, so when, after the board of selectmen voted, I got an email from the chief, and he said, did you knock the 125 down to 85 because you took the ambulance out and you were funding it in capital? And I said, yes. So they seemed to think they would be okay getting through this next fiscal year with what they had and the 85, okay? But that's also thinking that we were gonna help them fund an ambulance.
so between capital and operating, it's
But if
85
they
and
go
17.
away by July of 19, they don't need the ambulance.
Correct, nor do they need the entire, well, they would need the 85
Yeah.
if that was the deal.
So two components we're looking at, the operating budget, 75,000 in the capital. It sounds like the 75,000 in the capital we're not gonna consider anymore. So is the 85 enough, or do we need
I
to
think
bring that back up?
The 85's enough, and if they decide, again, I mean, I guess they could go out and buy an ambulance, why they would, I don't know.
I think that's
Yeah,
no, we talked to them about what's going on.
Right.
They're not gonna just,
no, I don't think they will
we're gonna
either.
buy an ambulance to spite them.
No,
don't think
I
that.
absolutely do not think
But I
that's
don't
what's
wanna
going
run
on.
away.
Yeah,
Right.
Well, I mean, the category should be ambulance services, just, I changed my mind, it shouldn't say Haddam anything. It's just contractual services for ambulance, whoever it ends up going to, just, it's just semantics, but it's not. It's just contractual services for whatever ambulance service works, over this next fiscal
So
year.
So are we talking about line 425, or are we talking about the capital plan? What are we talking?
No, we're
No,
going 425,
I'll-
we'll do.
I'll make a motion to fund 425 as it is at 93,346. And then when we get capital, I think we'll delete the ambulance.
The 83 is a payment to Middlesex?
yeah, and that was supposed to, that's based on our population. That number was supposed to increase $1 per year. Last year it should have jumped to $2 per capita, this year to $3. And the Middlesex Hospital has said the $1 per capita has been sufficient. So that's why that number was kept at 83.46, or dropped back down.
And it's a payment for a service they
For their
provide?
paramedics.
Paramedics.
Each town pays $1 per capita that uses the Middlesex Hospital paramedics.
Oh, I need a second? I'll second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
What was the number?
93,346.
All right, so that, are there salaries at some point, or you want to start discussion on capital, or? Those are, I think, on my list, those are the two things left. Capital and then revisiting for salaries, which, that might be easier to wait one more week, so I can maybe hand that out.
Yeah, why don't you just do the math and do that next time?
Right, it'll be easier to go over. So for capital, I'm just gonna, I kind of,
We have more paper for us?
yeah.
Sweet.
So I just, there's enough. I just made like a budget page for capital, I mean, the capital plan and that, so just kind of organize this a little bit differently and set it up, you know, like as if we could fill it out. And it has the same, what the cost, funding, whatever, department requests, what the selectmen approved, and a column for us, so just hopefully those would be a budget sheet that we have, and then we'll still need all that on the backup or to understand it. So this again is showing just a lot of the information we talked about on Saturday, so coming down to, you know, the tax amount, what the net request is, and then what the 2019 request is, and what was approved. You can see all the ambulance stuff that went through, as well as some of the other things that were asked. I just need Bob to verify one thing.
So I did have a conversation with him, so go ahead and verify it with him.
Yeah, I just want to know what the
That's
right number is, if it's 20,000 or 18,000.
18,786.
Okay.
20?
18,786 we
You have
talked
little
about.
faith.
Well, it was a net number, so it
Yeah.
didn't make any sense, so I
Sorry.
had to ask.
That's all right.
If it works, that's perfect. No difference is only $1,000 anyway.
I have
so-
to, I did speak to the chief, and we did have that discussion.
But that's all, that was my main question, was, because the request was written as 20.
I just said, can you live with that?
Which frankly is all we've asked, the department has asked of any of the funding, but boards and whatnot. If you need us to cut, tell us how much and we'll figure it out, or we'll tell you we can't. But this is one, can you live with that? Yeah, we'll make that work.
Okay. So that answers that.
That increase was my notes.
See that? I did that math right?
To the dollar.
Something's wrong
I
with it?
think that means both of you just made the same mistake.
Huh, look at that.
So because I wasn't in the office today, I didn't have time, so I couldn't print anything. But just for fun, I kind of rolled out the 10-year capital plan, because this was really bored yesterday. So just for perspective, and some of it I just, looking at what year, and most of this obviously relates to the fire department, the big stuff, what year needed to be funded by, I just kind of backed it up and smoothed it evenly over 4 or 5 years. So if we're looking at this 892 and we're gonna change that number, the next 5 years are 2.4 million, 2.3 million, 2 million, 2.1 million, 2.2 million. How many years is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Sure they are. 2.2 million, sure.
So that's $10 million over the next, after this year, more than 10 million. To be able to fund stuff in the years that it was requested. And oh, well, actually, so I did do a, and I'll bring this next time, I just couldn't print it, but that's putting in a couple different things. I think we're gonna buy land for Public Works Garage, I put that in at $3 million. So that's something that wasn't in the plan. I don't know what it
Where you come up with that?
Again, just the concept of we're gonna build a garage, I don't know if that's the right number, maybe it's $10 million, but just having everything that we think, and we may not do that in that year because it doesn't work, but I think everything, whatever our plans are, whatever we think we need, just everything needs to be on one page, so when we're funding, when we're looking at what we're funding one year, we know what's coming, at least that's the way I look at that, so.
So the 892,086 would actually be reduced by 75,000 if we don't do an ambulance.
Right.
Yeah, so it's 817,086, I guess.
Right, I didn't adjust anything,
Yeah.
but yeah, so that would be that. You know, so part of the conversation at some point, looking at those numbers is, and looking at the 10-year plan is what might need to be financed. I mean, that's, again, I'll print this out and bring it for next time so we can have that. And then I think we might want to break the plan into what we think we want to pay with cash and what we want to finance, so we have a realistic, some expectations, because the financing, we spread it, obviously, the bond or fire trucks would be 10 or 15 years, then it changes what the cost is, so now it's not capital anymore, now it's debt, but it's, so I think the 3 million is the only thing I added, because then I threw in here estimates for future roads and all that, but I didn't spread those out, because that would be harder, but I just figured if we bought the land, I just followed the budget that we would build the building if we bought the land, so. So that's that's $3 million, just, I don't know whether that's the right number or not, I have no idea.
I gotta tell you why I don't support the $67,500 for the sewer facility plan, Haddam Center. I think we studied it enough, and I don't believe there's a groundswell of support. If you compared it to the support that Potable Water has, which is fantastic, it's not there in Haddam Center. Second, another reason is that the funding available, one of which was, I think it was USDA for small communities, but there was one word that wasn't stated, and that's for poor communities. We're still a rich community, and I just don't see us looking at any of that funding at all. So I think what we could do is maybe take a survey, but I think it's a cart before the horse.
My understanding of that, and to my mind, it really revolves around Haddam Elementary. Haddam Elementary is what threw the curveball in there. Before it was to get some, some further development in Haddam Center, which may or may not be a big issue with I don't know how many people. But the sense I'm getting is that, number one, there's no sense. Haddam Elementary is not going to be Haddam Elementary anymore. So that's a given. Number two is that it's not going to go anywhere if there aren't sewers available for it. And if there aren't sewers available for it, that is going to be the homeliest, most god-awful white elephant you have ever seen that, to my mind, is going to ruin the town, sitting there empty. So I mean, I think that sewers are, and on the other hand, if we go ahead and do the sewers, that allows Haddam Elementary to be used for something, and then the other stuff goes along with it, I think there's a potential for good stuff to happen in downtown Haddam. But I think the sense I'm getting is that we're at a crossroads, and we really don't know one way or the other. But to just chug down the middle, 2 years from now, is not gonna be in the middle. We're gonna go one way or the other. So I support going the other.
I understood that the study is almost a requirement.
It's not a study, it's a
Right.
plan. It is a requirement from DEP.
From DEP.
You have to do it. There's no way around it. It's not a study.
I think I changed it to sewer facility plan.
You did.
And I changed it on mine too, with plan.
Because it's not a study.
Right.
You have to have a plan to be able to move forward with these, so that, and then eventually we'll have descriptions of where things go, but for now, it's not redoing anything that was done.
May I address, as far as the school, and you're, Harlan, you're correct. But I took away from our meeting with the Board of Ed, when the superintendent said that at the time, when it's, I don't know, he had some kind of end game as far as marketing the building, if the town itself didn't want to take possession of it, and that it was too early to even talk to developers. And I feel that we should at least allow him to talk to developers to see what kind of interest there is.
Well, I talked to, I don't remember
Peter
his name.
Sonsky, and they have talked to developers.
Right, because the board decided to close the school. That was the action that had to happen, so the developers now are talking.
Okay,
Good.
you haven't heard what they're saying?
Well, it's just begun,
It just-
because
Oh, okay.
it was
Well, that's what I'm saying.
contingent,
Conversation just started, but they are talking now.
it was contingent upon the board's actual vote to
Oh, I
close.
see, I see.
Because
I
the
misunderstood.
way we understood it from Peter was that no one would take a serious look at this unless they could be certain that the board had made its actual decision
Gotcha.
to close the building, so now we've done so. And I think it's a partnership, Mark. I think the district has to work with the town to
Absolutely.
find a solution and a future use for this building. So
That's
it's
a good
not,
one.
we're not on opposite sides of this idea.
Joe, I know it's not on here, but Joanne had brought it up, and I just, to make sure that we had put $35,000 aside.
That's a
That's
separate process.
Okay. I know, but just,
Ask Barbara,
okay.
do
never
that
mind.
analysis,
I'll be
but
quiet.
that's a funding issue, that's not
Okay. I will. I just want
Do
to.
you mean me?
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's in the current year.
No, I just,
there's more than just that, so.
never
we're
mind.
gonna
There
do
is
it
more
all.
than, well, not much, but yes.
Right,
Okay,
we're
I'll be
only
quiet.
Get the complete analysis on that, but again, that's the other side of it. It may help decide what we want to fund in the current year, but we'll have that for next meeting, yes.
Okay.
Okay. I
What
want
am
to
I
say.
supposed to be doing?
What projects by charter are closing?
Yeah.
And you know, all the balances are gonna end up in unallocated.
Right, we have to,
Go through and
right, absolutely.
do that, so we need some estimate.
I think I just got it. And
By
she
next
will
week.
never really access that, assessor will never really access that money.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. So we have to deduct the 75?
I said we just need a prelim number, but just to get an estimate of what's done and closed.
As soon as I make those that adjustment we talked about, so. yeah.
So Liz, some of the projects that are on here for 2019-20,
Yeah.
following year,
Yeah.
like I'm looking at Town Volunteer Fire Department, Station 2 parking lot, did they ask for those in the 2018-19 fiscal year, or did they ask for
No,
those to be
but they've been
funded in
asking,
19-20?
so this is what I think needs
Because
to
the
happen.
reason I'm asking
Yeah.
is, would we want to push any of these a year earlier?
possibly do. So this is what I think should happen. So for a long time, the capital plan was, it was a wish list, and then it was a need, and then this, that, and everything else. So there's a lot of things that I think are going to change now that we've made some changes to the charter, and we're gonna look at this committee a little bit different. We really need to look at the big picture. We can't look at it year by year and look at that. My question to the chiefs has been, how do you know what that's gonna cost? Did you ever get an estimate on it? Did you ever this and ever that? And the answer is nope. We just kind of figured, ballparked it and like that. So the reality is, I think that if there are, and that's one of the things I wanted to do for capital for next year. And again, if the board would like to look at that for this year, we can call and try to get some estimates. But I think that we need to have some realistic numbers around some of these construction type numbers, right? And we can guesstimate what a fire truck's gonna cost, or this piece of equipment or that. I think you have vendors that you can get those pricings from. But to actually do paving, to do the windows, to do this, to do that, I think we need to have somebody go in there and say, yeah, it's high, yeah, it's not low, this is what you need to do. And they're willing to work with the town and do that. And I've had those conversations with both Sam and Scott.
And the reason I bring it up is to try to flatten this out of it, even though we'd had an increase in the capital plan this year, it's still the 800-something thousand. We get $1 million or $2 million or whatever next year, the year after, the year after. Do we want to push some of it into the upcoming year at least?
In their backup on Station 2 parking lot, this was in the capital plan several years ago, town engineer had it patched instead, parking lot continues to fall apart and is in need of replacement. That doesn't mean it can't wait another year.
No, and the other thing that makes sense is it should be done, like if we're gonna be doing the driveway for the senior center, right? I mean, we can't tie things together, but that was probably not a good example. If we're doing other work someplace else, does it make sense to have that work done at the same time? It does. I mean, they're out, they're here, it's, you know.
And they called it a priority too, Dave, too, so maybe they don't feel that it's urgent.
Which means it's not a priority 1 or a priority 3.
Well, I think they feel that, you know, equipment and life-saving things are, but think about it, if they're not, if those windows aren't efficient, and I mean, there's savings that can be, I mean, and I guess that's the question is, how bad are they, right? Just because they're 20 years old, are they bad? I don't know. I'm just picking a number, but,
What, the radios?
no, I don't need radios.
All right.
No,
I talked to Scott about the radios.
touch the radios.
So I need more information on the radios.
Sweet. We cut and we cut and we cut and we cut and we cut. We try to nitpick all around the edges.
Right.
And close your ears. If the Board of Education just keeps coming in
I
with increases.
understand.
So we cut to try to continue
Listen.
funding the unrestrained spending.
Right,
Unrestrained spending.
right.
I'll repeat that term again. We got to address the needs of the town.
Listen, I am in 100% agreement with you. Are there places in our budget that we can save money? Sure, knocking down a little bit here and there, 500, 700, whatever. But I'm tired of sending the message that it's okay that we cut everything, and that, on the other hand, they're not.
So what I'm proposing
And
is
that's
that we
difficult.
take some of those that they've been asking for that could be done in 18 and 19, and we move them into 18 and 19.
Yeah, the only thing that, I don't think too much got moved from 18, 19. Previous to this, the Board of Selectmen did meet, and there's a grant that's due tomorrow. That is a planning grant that the town would be, if we did get it, would be subject to spending 16.5, it's a $165,000 grant that could be added in. On the infrastructure side, which this wasn't a formal meeting, so I need to get a request in for next time, but yeah, there's things that we can do. I mean, we've negotiated with possibly buying property for a public works garage and/or for some development. We're waiting to hear back from the sellers on that. I mean, there's always moving pieces, that's what's difficult. And then I think, you know, the board needs to decide what are we gonna pay for as we go and what might we bond or lease for. But I think I'm happy to try to see if we could pull it off. to try to get some estimates. I don't know if I could pull it off by next Monday, but
Well,
I'm
we don't
happy to.
need- But we don't, to Dave's plan, I'm not sure I agree with it, but just to carry out
I
the
think it-
figuring, we can put $200,000 in and
Yeah,
not have
you
it
could.
designated to anything,
You could.
just to the capital reserve. And then authorize those projects as they come. If your concern is that we know we have stuff, so it's not like we're just asking for money for nothing, but we haven't got them properly prioritized yet. And we want to try to better level fund stuff. I'm not sure I want to add another 200 grand in this year, but
I don't know what the number would be, just if,
to illustrate your point, it could be done.
it's unrealistic to think a couple of years down the road, we're gonna spend 2.2 million.
No, I think we're gonna have to finance, so that was just, that was kind of what, more my point, and when I print this out, because it's about this long, that's a conversation that we can look at, if we finance this, how does that change? Again, I wouldn't be able to calculate the debt service on the fly, but just conceptually, do we wanna finance these couple things? What does that do to the plan, to be an offset debt service? But just look at that, you know, what we wanna use that's unallocated, so maybe that gets us farther on certain things if we need them right now. And if we choose to finance stuff, then we already start funding stuff. So there's really a lot of different moving parts to this. If we, you know, such as I'm not sure what's with the truck we're financing for Haddam Neck. We have some money put aside, there's 80 grand this year, but if we decide well, we're gonna finance fire trucks, well then that changes again what else we can do that's current, that maybe makes more sense to do current, because certain things you can't bond. Fire trucks you can, but other things you can't really normally bond for the parking lot or other types of equipment. So it would allow us to look at the plan a little bit differently and then shift stuff forward or accomplish some other things. So we'll definitely add more information to the process and see what the numbers. So I don't know if that's the conversation initially, is what number do we want, and then we figure out the project's secondary. I mean, we have an initial, we have a starting point, but.
Well, just don't increase taxes on that number either. I'm good with that.
So we can just push it up until it stays the same? So,
I'm being fresh.
all right.
So,
So what we could do is I can get a little bit more information for next time on that piece, or everyone can think about those things. But do we want $900,000, or do we want $800,000 per year, or do we want to figure out what that means to the tax rate now, and then work backwards from that?
That may be the thing to do, yeah.
All right.
Is there a lot of moving pieces this year with the extra, what was the final number from Northeast Utilities?
it's gonna probably,
It's 1.2 million, but I think we need to add the revenue side conversation to this also, because that's gonna drive the other side of the tax rate.
But
So I think maybe we can pull that together for next week too, because we need all those pieces at the same time to have that conversation, to see where it's gonna go. You know, if we make some decisions of not to put certain things in the general fund, then that's gonna happen. And impact our tax rate. Okay. Guess that's what I'll be doing next Saturday. Well, no, I think that's gonna be helpful, just so we have all that information to be able to look at how we wanna manage this last piece.
So we got capital plan to finalize yet. Debt service, did those numbers get sent out?
Yeah,
Yeah, that got set.
Okay, so we know what that is.
yeah, capital's the only budget we haven't
Okay.
voted. Well, we got salary increases due
The
next time too.
the salary increases, we need to just tally that all up and pick some.
Yep,
number.
we've already calculated
Yeah, because
it, we
they've
can
got
tell
that
you
for
what they are.
many years, yeah, okay, yeah.
I think we could start doing it to all vehicles, if they're gonna be lumped in.
Okay.
So we're gonna,
And then revenue is the other variable that's gonna drive this. So those are the salary, some estimated capital, revenue are the last pieces of the puzzle to at least have a starting point before this thing changes the numbers.
Whole new ambulance, no.
so we have another night left, we can do all that, right? We got time left.
2 more nights, I think.
Is it two? All right, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm sure we'll be able to get to the majority of it next time, so if we need the other one, it's
Okay.
back up.
And
So we could go home tonight now.
Yeah. I won't be here next Monday. Out of town on the second.
I may or may not.
She might have a grandbaby.
Yeah,
Nice.
hopefully on Thursday. Yeah.
All right, so we're good to go tonight? We got
Public
something
comment?
left?
Yes. Comment on the sewer system, to think about Civic Haddam, and how many people live there without the necessity of a sewer. And again, as a taxpayer, I'm not gonna get sewers on Churchill Road. Why should I fund sewers for downtown that does not have any problem with their sewer system right now and has a lot of open spaces for business to come in? And Rossi thought that all the back could be used to make a sewer field as well. That's what he has proposed many times, but hasn't found anyone to develop the thing yet. So I think it's a bit premature, like Mark was saying, to put money aside for a study for sewers and so on. And we studied it to death for the last 20 years. My second comment has to do with, more in general, with our legal process, how we do things. Our system is a board of selectmen, board of finance, and town meeting. Taxpayers' money comes through the town meeting, decides, vote on a budget, after you guys sweat it out and look at detail, cut 1,000 here, 1,000 there, but you approve it and send it to the town for approval. Nobody else in this organization can spend money without your approval and the townspeople's approval. Earlier at the Board of Selectmen meeting earlier today, the town planner ran too late for an application for a grant, and this is a matching grant, $160,000, where the town would be on the hook for $16,000. And without coming to you, the First Selectman approved the grant, the contract. And at this point, it's in violation of the charter as well as a statute, because no officer can actually, without your approval, spend money for the town. The idea is that we would come to you first, and then you have a discussion, and the public would be allowed to make some comments and ask questions about the grant and everything else. And tonight, it just showed up on the agenda, was approved. If the grant goes through, the town is on the hook for $60,000 that you guys didn't even approve. And it's been a pet peeve of me as a member when I was on this board, that grants should not be approved without coming first to the Board of Finance to make sure there's no matching money or matching personnel that has to work and be paid for it. Unfortunately, it happened tonight, and all I'm trying to say is that it's not against one party or the other. It's simply that we have a process in place, and I think we should follow the process. That's simple. Thank you.
First, I'd like to thank Joe for changing the capital plan back to 10 years. I brought that up at a Board of Selectmen meeting a couple weeks ago. I was told by the finance director and the first selectman that no, nobody does it like that. I do believe that's planning out 10 years, especially when we have some big projects coming down the pike that we plan for those big projects. As far as a big project like the sewer, again, Mr. Kapitulik mentioned at the last meeting on Saturday that, oh, we'll finally get numbers out of this study. And again, it's not a study, it's a plan, so I'm glad you changed that. But we already have tons of numbers. And I urge every Board of Finance member to go to the Planning and Zoning Land Use section of the town website and read the sewer study. I'm just going to read you these 3 sentences from the second page of the sewer study, because this is key for the plan that $67,000 supposedly will pay for. And this is a suggestion by Wright Pierce after we had spent tens of thousands of dollars for this plan. Both the sewer connections to Middletown and the wastewater treatment options are feasible, but very expensive, especially when considering the relatively small number of properties to be served and the resulting low design flow rates. Based on our cost estimates, it would still be considerably less costly to construct a small package type wastewater treatment system to serve Hingham Village when compared to the sewer connection to Middletown options. But the per property unit cost will still be very high. That's for each business owner. And they have to pay it, whether you're a church, whether you're the Grange, you are not exempt as a nonprofit organization or agency. If a larger sewer service area was identified, such as the Rossi property, the increased number of potential customers and the impacts on economic development could possibly help justify either alternative. Interconnection with Middletown would be more financially feasible if Middletown shared the cost related to the construction of the force mains, but this would also likely require commercial development all along 154. At this time, now this is key, this is their recommendation. At this time, it is recommended that the EDC consider the long-term economic development potential that could be achieved by providing sewer service in order to determine if there is a justification to proceed with the next steps. We have not done any of that economic feasibility work yet. That needs to be done to see what those business owners, I've done my own research based on the East Haddam plant, what the business owners would actually be responsible for. Because you're talking about a very small area. You're not talking about Portland where you have thousands of residents, houses, businesses on this system. You're talking a handful in that small little section. This needs to slow down. We need to do the economic feasibility portion first. Then we can plan to see if we need to plan for sewers. It's kind of putting the cart before the horse. And I don't know if anybody knows what a black box system is. It's not a black box. That is such a misnomer. If you look at that piece of, well, the box behind the Paddock in Chester, that is not a black box system, that's a pump house. They don't have their own sewer system there. They pump their stuff to Deep River. And so like in East Haddam, there's 2 huge buildings that is the black box system. I don't remember seeing, I'm not sure, Mark might have been there, but I don't remember seeing any of you guys at the water sewer discussion a couple of years ago that the Hingham Vision Group planned. We had the East Haddam Water Pollution Control Authority director there explaining a lot of the system to the group. And also, I don't know if you all know that a Water Pollution Control Authority, if the town actually approves that through an ordinance, the Board of Finance will be taken out of the process. You will no longer have any control over any costs of a sewer system. That they will be able to set those costs, have complete authority over those costs. So again, I really think that we should follow what Wright Pierce, the professionals, have stated that we should be doing. This is their second report. This is an update on another report. So that is my suggestion. One last question. Joe, you mentioned you tried to be fair throughout the process with the financials. And something that I've been told for now, it's been 4 years, almost 5 years, that the fire departments are going for their own 501c3 status. I know that you have, looks like you've completed it, but there's no 990 online. I'm wondering if you've submitted any 990s, and I'm also wondering about this side of the river, their financials. I know they have not completed their paperwork. But I'm wondering if the Board of Finance has asked the fire departments for any of their financials, especially since the fire department on this side of the river uses the town of Haddam's tax ID number. Is there any information on that, of getting that information, getting that data from the fire department?
Public comment.
So you have no comment? Okay.
For the
Of course.
sake of conversation, I always kind of compare capacities to what we built at the middle school, the new middle school. And one of the things that we haven't talked about is the annual fees. And last time I heard, the middle school spends about, what, $125,000 in maintaining the sewer system for the middle school.
You got me there, Mark, I don't
Yeah.
have that figure.
So, I mean, that's another option, bill. And I don't know if the entire town of Haddam is willing to pick that up. Just another thought.
They actually can't. The sewer fees have to be charged to the individual homeowners or businesses, or you cannot be, it's by statute, or you can't receive any clean water funds. So, like, take the Gelston House, for example, they pay about $35,000 a year for their sewer system, their sewer hookup. Now, you look at the small area that they have the same problem that we would have if we had sewers here. So you take somebody like the Canaris shopping center there with AJ's and everything, that's probably, and now I'd have to run the numbers again, like $30,000 a year. Talking about the Grange, they'd probably be $8,000 a year. So that's something that we have to take into consideration before we plan to do the sewer. So you're throwing good money after that. That's my suggestion.
Anyone else?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Beat me to it, Dave.